I, for one, cannot wait for the next 2 days of the blessing that it is for me to be able to carry Todd Erzen's sorry, decrepit keister up and down this show. This is the Steve Deace Show. I am not Steve Deace. He is, as we speak, helping to fill in on the Charlie Kirk Show. So it is, however, the Todd and Aaron Show, or more appropriately, the Aaron and Todd Show. I am Aaron McIntire. He is Todd Erzen. We are your hosts, your humble hosts today on the program. Todd, how are you doing, brother?
I'm good. Somebody yesterday just sent me some fine vinegar, so I can take shots as needed to get me through these next 2 days. It's go time.
Indeed, it is. Coming up on the show today, we're going to take some trash out of our own backyard. We're going to be talking to a local independent news publication about just how it's possible, and I still think people are asking the wrong question. How is it possible that any school district the size of the Des Moines Public School District was able to hire an illegal immigration or an illegal immigrant as their superintendent of all positions? We're going to be talking to Jacob Hall at the Iowa Standard coming up at the bottom of the hour. Hour 2, fake news or not, Todd has no idea what's coming. I've got some things in store for him, and we'll be going inside Pop Culture Tuesday, a beatdown of epic proportions involving one of my favorite works of fiction, Harry Potter. But first, I was just talking to Bella about this yesterday. I asked her, hey, how are we doing on vitamin D? We are at the end of September. October is tomorrow. And I asked her, hey, you've been giving the kids vitamin D? And she said, no, we've been getting outside in the sun for an hour every day. And I said, that's very good. But she said, come October 1st, she's going to start giving vitamin D to the children because we're getting into cold, flu, and just general sick season. Don't be unprepared. That's where our friends at Jace come in. We've spoken a lot about the company, this Jace company in the past. And of course, a lot of you have seen the value in being prepared and have got the Jace case. But for those who don't know, the Jace case is a kit filled with emergency medications and prescription antibiotics. It's absolutely a must-have, especially as we get into cold and flu and sick season. So please do yourself a favor and check it out. What you may not know, even if you have the Jace case, is that Jace has been working to expand their lineup with total preparedness solutions tailored for you and your family. I know you're all the type who want to do your own research, so go ahead and check them out and see which antibiotic, first aid, or other preparedness kits are right for the ones you provide for and protect. The doctors at Jace also are coming up with new ideas to make your emergency readiness even stronger, so you'll want to keep an eye on them. I know there are some exciting things coming soon from our friends at Jace. Enter promo code Jace or promo code Deace, D-E-A-C-E, for a checkout discount on your order. That's promo code D-E-A-C-E at jace.com. That's J-A-S-E.com. What happened while we were away, brought to you by fat shaming. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth addressed basically every general of note in the United States Armed Forces and reemphasized his directive from the president for combat readiness, including calling out generals to their faces about their physical fitness or lack thereof.
With physical fitness and appearance. If the Secretary of War can do regular, hard PT, so can every member of our joint force. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are. When it comes to any job that requires physical power to perform in combat, those physical standards must be high and gender neutral. If women can make it, excellent. If not, it is what it is. If that means no women qualify for some combat jobs, so be it. That is not the intent, but it could be the result, so be it. It will also mean that weak men won't qualify because we're not playing games.
President Trump also addressed the generals.
Because the purposes of American military is not to protect anyone's feelings, it's to protect our republic. And it's the republic that we dearly love. It's to protect our country. We will not be politically correct when it comes to defending American freedom, and We will be a fighting and winning machine. We want to fight. We want to win.
In other news, YouTube agreed to pay $24.5 million to settle a lawsuit filed by President Donald Trump after he was suspended by social media platforms following the events at the Capitol on January 6th of 2021. This makes Alphabet-owned YouTube the last of the three big tech social media companies sued by Trump, which included Meta and then Twitter, now called X, to settle over his removal from their platforms. We're learning more about the LDS church shooter in Michigan, Thomas Jacob Sanford. A social media photograph from one of his family members shows Sanford wearing a Trump 2020 shirt years ago. Also, CNN interviewed a city council candidate in the shooter's hometown of Burton, Michigan, who said in recent days he had a disturbing conversation with Sanford.
Make the statement that Mormons are the Antichrist, which is a shocking statement. And again, this is somebody you're just meeting for the first time. There was anger. I mean, it was a long-standing anger that I'm speculating. But what he did took planning. It also took real motivation and real anger to ultimately do what he did.
Back in Washington, D.C., the nation learned yet another tragic and preventable story about how pro-crime Democrat policies claimed yet another life. 22-year-old aspiring teacher Logan Federico was fatally shot on May 3rd while visiting friends at the University of South Carolina in Columbia. Logan's father, Stephen, laid out what happened in front of a House panel yesterday.
How many of y'all have kids? I'm just curious. Here's what I need you to do. When I tell you this story, think about your kids. Think about your child coming home from a night out with their friends, laying down, going to sleep, feeling somebody come in the room and wake them and drag her out of bed, naked, forced on her knees with her hands over her head, begging for her life, begging for her hero, her father, me, that couldn't be there. She was 5'3". She weighed 115 pounds. Bang! Dead. Gone. Why? Because Alexander Devontae Dickey, who was arrested 39 goddamn times, 25 felonies, was on the street. How about that? How good are we doing for our family? How good are you doing for your kids? He should have been in jail for over 140 years for all the crimes he committed.
Before that gut-wrenching testimony, North Carolina Democrat Representative Deborah Rost confused Logan Federico for Irina Zarutska.
Long before this hearing, particularly...
My daughter. This isn't Irina.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is my daughter.
I am so sorry.
Okay?
I am so sorry.
This is Logan Federico.
Thank you so much for bringing that. Thank you. Thank you, sir. I am so sorry for you.
She was before Irina.
I am so
4 months before.
I'm so sorry for your loss, and my heart goes out to you.
Yikes, and unacceptable indeed. Staying in Washington, D.C., the government is set to shut down overnight tonight. Vice President J.D. Vance says they hang up for a stopgap funding bill as Democrats want oodles of money for meatball surgery for the gender-confused and free health care for illegals.
Hundreds of billions of dollars to illegal aliens for their health care while Americans are struggling to pay their health care bills. That was their initial foray into this negotiation. We thought it was absurd. We told them it was absurd, and now they come in here saying that if you don't give us everything that we want, we're going to shut down the government. We think that's preposterous. So if they want to talk about how to fix American health care policy, let's do it. The Speaker would love to do it. The Senate Majority Leader would love to do it. Let's work on it together. But let's do it in the context of an open government that's providing essential services to the American people. That's all that we're proposing to do. And the fact that they refuse to do that shows how unreasonable their position is. I think we're headed to a shutdown because the Democrats won't do the right thing.
President Trump met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday at the White House, where they laid out a proposed 20-point plan for a peace agreement in Gaza.
I also want to thank Prime Minister Netanyahu for agreeing to the plan and for trusting that if we work together, we can bring an end to the death and destruction that we've seen for so many years, decades, even centuries and begin a new chapter of security, peace, and prosperity for the entire region.
Yeah, that agreement, as I said, includes 20 points, including a provision that members of Hamas will not ever seek leadership positions in any governmental organization overseeing the war-torn stretch of land. Arab neighbors in the region seem to indicate their approval of the proposed plan. Seems like the ball is now in the court of Hamas. The New York Post has published a letter from Charlie Kirk to the aforementioned Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In the letter, Kirk reaffirmed his support for Israel, but outlined ways in which the country is behind the eight ball when it comes to narrative development and social media. Not quite the content that some had insinuated that letter contained. And finally, Theo Vaughn and Tim Dillon on RFK Jr.
Bobby Kennedy Jr. will clean it up.
Yeah, he'll figure it out. Him and his wife will figure it out. I love them. They're a fun couple.
I just went to his 70th birthday. The best thing about being around them is there's this whole level of like comedy that's around it all.
Yes. It's a fun sitcom where she's like a fun, bubbly, sunny person, and the CIA killed his whole family. and it's just like a fun, and it's like hilarity ensues. And he's like looking for bombs in a car, and she's playing tennis. It's a fun mix. They're an odd couple.
Come and knock on our door.
Come and knock on our door. This could be our last day. Because they've killed all of his dad, his uncle.
And people are like, why is this guy so skeptical about stuff? Are you out of your mind?
No, it's crazy. People are like, why doesn't he trust the government to inject us with the right chemicals?
And that's what happened while we were away. Brought to you by our friend and colleague, Allie Beth Stuckey, and her event, Share the Arrows. You know, we spend a lot of time on here talking about what's going on in the culture and politics, battles, the noise, the craziness. But here's something different, an opportunity for you. If you're a woman listening right now, or if there's a woman in your life you care about, you need to hear about there's still enough time to get signed up. It's called Share the Arrows, and it's happening October 11th in Dallas, Texas, hosted by Blaze TV's own Allie Beth Stuckey, and it's designed to encourage, equip, and speak truth into women who are trying to stand firm in this world. A day full of worship teaching and real conversation with bold voices like Alyssa Childers, Katie Faust, Taylor Dukes, and more. Worship led by Francisca Battistelli, and it's going to be an incredible experience. So if you're a woman who's been craving encouragement and biblical truth, this is for you. And if you're a husband, dad, or brother listening, think about your wife, daughter, or sister in your life who needs this. A culture that's constantly pulling in the wrong direction. This event is your chance to stop, reset, and get grounded in biblical truth. Again, still opportunities, tickets available at sharethearrows.com, sharethearrows.com, spelled just like it sounds. And yes, VIP options are still available. Well, Steve is out, but I'm sure he'd still want to hear what you think about what we think. Steve at stevedeace.com is the email address. You can follow him on social media. X is the main platform that we use, at Steve Deace Show. You can follow me at Deace Producer and Todd at Smug. Let's go front to back in the montage. Todd, I understand, and I think, you know, the old saying goes, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is right now. And something like physical fitness in the military. Yes, what you're hearing this morning from Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, along with the president, talking to these generals right to their faces, calling them fat, that's a good thing. Okay, that's objectively a good thing. But Todd, we're talking about our military here. Any military. This should not be a consideration for any serious military, that we've got members who are fat, much less generals and admirals who are not up to the physical task at hand. And so I absolutely welcome, this is a welcome change for our military. It is good to know out here in the cheap seats. It's good to know that we are refocusing on the things that actually matter in our military. And that would be, you know, can you actually fight? Can you actually go toe to toe with any human being in this world? That's good to know. But I do think this is yet another indication of just a lot of things that we've taken for granted in a functioning society, in a functioning government, like a military, one of the prime ordinances of government, just falling so far behind.
Well, it's good to have a bar. This certainly raises it. It was pretty darn low. Aaron, I recall montages that you put together not too long ago that had members of our military in dress uniform in one instance, and then they did this fabulous twirl, and they were in drag. So, yeah, We're moving on up. Now, listen, quite frankly, I love how he also phrased, men versus women, and maybe there won't be any. But he can keep going for my money. Listen, I think there was a really instructive story. This gal on the left who was dating some guy who she just viewed as beta and the perfect leftist man, and she really said, I really hadn't thought of him as a man, so she tried to wrestle him, and she said she had this awakening. She's like, so he kind of gave it back to her, and she said, I couldn't believe the power. I honestly didn't know. This is how dumb we have become. So the fact that what you just saw here is Captain Obvious moment. Yeah, but that's even amongst the military. That's where we live. We have been so soft for so long and so comfortable. Our wiring is just shot, and we are totally having to retrain ourselves to function as almost every other society, Christian or otherwise, quite frankly. I mean, there are just pagan societies, as Steve said, that were way ahead of us in terms of certain fundamentals. We've lied to ourselves and I'm going to get to that in other aspects, as Christian men for a very long time about our fundamentals.
Other comments at Quantico, that's where Secretary of War Hegseth, as well as President Trump, were speaking this morning. Secretary of War Hegseth basically said, another clip that I saw without saying it as overtly as I am, if you are a general or admiral and any of this is making your heart sink, you can get out.
Yeah.
So good for him, and that's a welcome change. Let's keep working right down the other big news from yesterday as well. This broke later in the evening. YouTube agreeing to pay a $24.5 million settlement for banning President Trump from their platform in the aftermath of the events at the Capitol on January 6th. Why it's 2025 and it's taken this long to get to this point, well, that's pretty evident. He's president now, and so of course they're willing to play ball and pay a little tribute, I should say. But this is a long time coming. And you put this together with what we heard last week from Jim Jordan, and I think it's oversight on the House, or maybe it was the judiciary, I can't remember. But whatever, House panel came out and basically forced YouTube to say, yeah, we've been censoring conservatives. We've been doing viewpoint censorship for a long time, and we promise we'll stop. And then this week they settle for $24.5 million with President Trump. And as I said, this is the latest lawsuit settled with Trump. He's settled with other media outlets as well. Is this just a matter of, let's not get into too much trouble here, Todd, or are we actually seeing some sort of a sea change when it comes to media, particularly social media?
We're definitely not seeing a sea change. This is them covering their tracks and just hoping this goes away because, to all you whiny brats, whether you're professional brats or just social media brats who keep saying fascism, 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 that's fascism. That's why they're just sorry, here's all this money, now let's all be nice to each other, because they know people will buy that. And they'll bide their time and go back until they're in power again because they did this colluding with the Biden administration. That's actual fascism. So just taking the cash is, Donald Trump, trust me, he's earned it. But no jail, nothing else, just the money. This is what the businesses aren't. We've seen that the businesses are really, if it's time in 4 years again to do the rainbow flags, they'll do it. They'll go look at the NFL, look at the halftime show. No one's really learning any lessons in the business world. All they get, they're about the money. They'll destroy college football for the money. It's all. So no, we are not seeing a sea change, Aaron. Absolutely not. All the people who said, we really stuck it to Bud Light. No,
we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about that in Fake News or Not.
Okay, good.
Next up, so the LDS church shooter in Michigan. There was a lot of back and forth on social media about, was this shirt photoshopped? Was it not? I did my best to verify, and from what I can tell, the photo from 2019, which I played in the montage where he is wearing a Trump 2020 shirt, that is legitimate. I don't know how much that needs to come into play here in terms of what his actual motive was. I have seen some innuendo on social media from purported witnesses to that just tragic and terroristic event on Sunday. I have not felt comfortable sharing or reporting some of that yet. I did play those comments from that Burton, Michigan City Council candidate saying that he'd had a conversation with the shooter in recent days, disturbing and very, very much prejudiced against Mormonism. Todd, do you have any takes on what we're learning, if anything, in the days following this just heinous act in Michigan?
Well, we did discuss it yesterday. I'll just reiterate that there is it believable to me that this man just grew to hate Mormons that much because they were anti-Christical and therefore went, took edgelord to its logical conclusion? Yeah, I can believe that. Listen, there is all my Protestant brothers and sisters out there know I love them. They know this isn't about you, but there's a conservative Protestant edgelord problem out there who's happy to cast everybody in the pit of hell from an anonymous account, and they spend a lot of their time hating everybody who isn't them. Catholics, I've pointed that out. Jews, Stephen and Aaron have pointed that out. Mormons, they simply can't help themselves. You guys are a combination of incel and cuckold, and I've got nothing good to say about you, blaspheming the name of the Lord, to hate everybody as much as possible from the time you get up in the morning to the time you get out at night. Now, that's me, Todd Erzen, talking, but this is ridiculous. You are just using the name of the Lord to be the exact same narcissistic sinner as you were before you met him. You just think this now gives you some sort of special shield to do it with cosmic power. You're appalling, you're disgusting, and I won't stop telling you that.
No, I would second that. And I don't understand, especially on Sunday and in the ensuing 48, 72 hours as well. You know, what gets a person to that point where instead of thinking, oh my goodness, what are these victims going through? What are their families feeling and thinking right now? And instead they see gunmen open fire on Christians. No, you can't. They're not. I don't understand what possesses a person to say that in that moment. It's not about you. It's not about semantics. It's about the victims and what they are going through and the heinous evil that they faced. Because make no mistake, regardless of how this guy was radicalized, what he was doing, what he was thinking, how he was behaving in the lead up to this event, that is just abject evil from the pit of hell. Speaking from the pit of hell, 39 priors for the killer of Logan Federico. Nobody knew who this poor young woman, 22 years old, wanted to be a teacher. Nobody knew who she was prior to this week. And then her father got up and testified in front of the House yesterday. And I just want to underscore something. And I think I said this in passing at one point in the aftermath of Irina Zarutska in that story. But these types of stories really underscore one thing to me. I've often wondered, why is it that these soft on crime, they're not soft on crime, as I'll get to in a little bit, but these soft on crime district attorneys, these Soros district attorneys, why is this the Soros MO? Why is this their strategy? Nobody likes crime. And so you install these soft on crime district attorneys, and guess what? They don't punish crime. And guess what? People don't like crime. How is this a coherent strategy? How is it? And it finally dawned on me, it actually is a very coherent strategy. Just from the other side, from down low. The strategy is this: we want to demoralize every single person who is demoralizable, which is a word that I just made up. That's the strategy. It's not that they're soft on crime. They are actively pro-crime. with the intent to demoralize every single person so that they accept, no, we can't do better than this. No, we can't lock up somebody who's been arrested 39 times and is about to go execute the next Logan Federico. That is the idea here. That's the strategy. And why do they want to demoralize you? Because the demoralized people are easier to control. They're easier to be suggestible. Here's what we've got next cooked up for you. It's called communism or socialism or what have you. Fill in the blank. And when you look at the statistics, the demographic shifts from rural America to urban, suburban America, the cities are really what matters when it comes to control. And that's really always been the case when it comes to Western civilization, of course, in modernity and after the Industrial Revolution. But once you demoralize the cities, once you make people accept or try to get people to accept this notion that we just can't do better than this, guess what you control? You control the cities. And when you control the cities, you control the nation. And this is just the latest tragic example of that. And I know the way that she sounded. It sounded like she was handling the situation very well, but Democrat representative from North Carolina, Deborah Ross, getting Irina Zarutska and Logan Federico mixed up in that hearing. That's just, what can I say? If that doesn't illustrate how the Democrats not only don't care, but are actively encouraging this type of policy. It's not policy, it's just chaos. That's what it is. I'm not sure what sums that up better, Todd.
Well, you know who a lot of the people guilty of just kind of shrugging their shoulders and giving up and, saying we really, can't do anything but hope for the best. You know what they're actually called, Aaron? Unfortunately, they're called pastors. A lot of them right now, that is, Jesus, take the wheel, They're doing right now, still in real time. There's a viral video every day. I know Aaron sees them as well. That is riffing, and now that they're actually going to happen more because now that Charlie is actually buried, they're doing Charlie Kirk actually. Like, Tone, he didn't deserve to die. It's not just the MSNBC.
Yeah, I saw that at David Platt's church.
Yeah. Their pastors are saying this now. Actually, see, that's the flip side of all the edgelords I talk to you. It's this ridiculous side of things who just, can't be bothered, are terrified. Instead of grabbing the men in all of their churches and saying, we must go forth and do better, they're terrified. They're absolutely terrified. So I wish this was, until we actually have men leading churches who just do not throw up their hands in their circumstances. Because quite frankly, if you're doing that to Charlie Kirk, you should do that to the man who just lost his daughter. Because they're the same people complaining about the same thing. We're just trying to defend Western civilization here. Imagine your children. Imagine your family. No, that sounds icky.
Quickly before the break, we're going to be talking about the government shutdown, alleged, for fake news or not. This plan between the United States and Israel, Bibi Netanyahu at the White House yesterday, Todd. Did you read through the 20-point plans? I did. I was listening to the conference while it was going on, and I read through this, and I thought, oh, man, I mean, they're trying here, but when I got to the point where Hamas, part of this plan, if they accept it, that Hamas members are not going to be able to hold any governmental positions in Gaza, I'm like, this is probably not going to go anywhere. But it seems like the Arab neighbors, as well as others, Israel is accepting of this plan. United States, Europe seems to be accepting of this plan. Does this have any shot at being accepted by Hamas? Just gut instinct.
Oh, I think it has a far better shot than ever before. Now, because of everything that they've, the hammer has genuinely been shown to them in a way they just never thought would happen. The bluff was called. So, yeah, I'll give it better odds than it has in the past.
Well, when we come back, we're going to be taking out the trash in our own backyard. We learned the difference. There's French Guiana, there's Guyana, and then there's Ghana. It was Guyana that our superintendent here in Des Moines, Iowa, that's the country he was here from illegally. There's some more developments on that front. We'll talk more about that coming up next. Back on the Steve Deace Show, minus Steve Deace, who is out today. He is helping to fill in on the Charlie Kirk Show as we speak. I'm Aaron McIntire, joined by Todd Erzen. And of course, the national spotlight was rocked late last week. I was over in Omaha at the zoo with my family on Friday afternoon when I saw come across my feed the news that one Mr. Ian Andre Roberts from the Des Moines Public School District, the superintendent of the Des Moines Public School District, was arrested by Immigration and Customs Enforcement because he had a deportation order from the Biden administration. And I want to tell you now what I said in that moment, sitting there with my son as we were waiting on the bathrooms. I quote, "Ha ha 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 ha." It sounded a little different than that. I just laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. Joining us now from the Iowa Standard, that's an independent news outlet here in the Hawkeye State, is Jacob Hall. You are the owner and operator of the Iowa Standard. Welcome to the Blaze, Jacob. Pleasure to have you with us. Before we talk about this case in particular, and there are some updates from this morning that we'll get into, I think people across the country, rightfully, and it's understandably, I think they're asking the wrong question about the Des Moines Public School District. They're saying, why in the world, how is it possible that any public school district, much less the one the size of the Des Moines Public School District, how is it possible that they were even able to hire an illegal alien as their superintendent of all positions? I think that's the wrong question to ask. If you know the Des Moines Public School District, the question I think people should be asking is, why did it take till 2023 for them to do something like this? Give us a picture, paint a picture of what we're dealing with when it comes to this school district, because from my vantage point, I know there are some good teachers in the school district, some good families in the school district. You yourself, you told me during the break, you're a product of this school district as well. But when it comes to the administration, it seems like a wretched hive.
Yeah, it's really interesting how the Des Moines Public Schools have evolved, we'll use their term, over time. And when you look at the district, they are very open about pushing their social agenda. I mean, you can go to their Flickr page and you're going to find right there a mural painted in a middle school that has BLM stuff on it, the rainbow flag stuff all over it. And it's one thing to sort of covertly do this stuff, but it's quite another to just be out loud and proud about it. The previous superintendent, guys, resigned because of, I believe they say, pressures of the job. We have to remember that he showed up to a Halloween party with his DMPS badge on, with a costume that basically really kind of mocked prayer. And his wife showed up to a school Halloween party with a costume of Donald that alluded to Donald Trump and the cat. Previous words. So this district, and just to be clear, the current president of the board is running as a Democrat for U.S. Senate. So that kind of gives you an idea of the direction of the Des Moines Public Schools.
Yeah, and she's former Michelle Obama, former First Lady, Chief of Staff, correct, or some capacity like that. So that's kind of a big picture about what we're dealing with for everybody around the country who's listening to this. This school board, you think your school board is bad? I promise you, Des Moines Public School District, at least their administration, is just as bad, if not worse. So let's get to the case at hand here. Let me paint the picture here. You fill in any blanks, anything that I'm missing here. Dr. Ian Andre Roberts, okay, came here in 1999, I believe, on some sort of a student visa, overstayed that visa, was given deportation orders back last year, I believe, by the Biden administration. Right. We're not totally sure about all of his academic bona fides or bona fides, whatever you want to call them. Not totally sure about that. That's kind of murky. He was confronted by Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents in Des Moines on Friday. Once they identified themselves, he fled in ostensibly a district-provided car. He had a loaded handgun, which I've heard some rumors saying, well, it might be for hunting. No. A handgun, $3,000 in cash. Again, he is from Guyana, not to be confused with French Guiana or Ghana, but Guyana, the South American Guyana. He is a registered voter in Maryland, and there is an update. First of all, am I missing any details here? I'm sure that I am, but that's kind of the big picture of who we're dealing with here, right?
There was, in addition to the gun, there was a knife, a quote-unquote hunting knife, and also right. $3,000 in cash, and an element that I've been told by sources, there's a cooler that was also in the vehicle, and they haven't released what was in it yet publicly, but I'm told that will add to the story when and if they do.
So this is the Des Moines Public Schools superintendent that we're talking about here, or ex-superintendent. So there is, so the latest development yesterday was that it was sort of reported by multiple outlets. You were one of them, that Ian Andre Roberts was a registered Democrat in the state of Maryland. So they're not contesting that. This is an illegal alien who is registered to vote in Maryland, but there's something new that broke this morning, correct?
Yeah, so late last night, I sent an email asking the Maryland Election Board for some information, and this morning they had responded that he had last cast a ballot in April of 2025. For my fellow Des Moines Public School products, that means it was after the final order of deportation. And so then I responded, like, how does that happen? Because he had this order of deportation in the spring of 2024. And within 11 minutes, they got back to me and said, oh, it was a mistake. He's never voted here. And they sent me a copy of a blank spreadsheet that reports to show his voter activity in Maryland. He originally registered in Maryland way back in the early 2010s, was inactive after a couple years, and then was made active again. Well, the crazy thing is they still send him, starting in 2020, they've been sending him absentee ballots, not requests, actual ballots. So even if he hasn't voted, clearly Maryland has some problems within their voting system and their election integrity. And the other thing that I think we should point out about this whole arrest of Ian Roberts is it happened at 9 a.m. on Friday morning. This wasn't 9 p.m. He's going out. He's doing other things. I've never been a public school superintendent, but I imagine at 9 a.m. on a Friday morning, I'm probably acting in my official duties as a public school superintendent during the school year. So this whole thing is just a total mess. And I don't even know that we're beyond the surface layer of everything we're going to learn yet.
I don't know about you, Todd. I'm getting whatever the opposite of radical empathy out of Jacob here. I'm catching a tinge of a lack of radical empathy here, and I just want that to be noted, that we're not practicing, taking a page out of Dr. Roberts' playbook and practicing radical empathy, as I believe Jackie Norris said that we should do the other day. Todd, do you have any questions?
Yeah, well, this is why if I ever win the lottery and enough money to buy the Des Moines Register, which I would do, instantly I would call Jacob Hall and say, hey, Jacob, you want to have some fun? I've known Jacob a long time. We'd get things done. Yeah, now this is... The Republicans, this hasn't been that long. They need to have some time to, make sure they do things properly. But to me, this is malfeasance if a state of emergency isn't declared as is allowed under the Constitution. Take over this district, do a forensic audit. I know something like that is already called on by Adam Steen, who's running for governor. Listen, I love Kim Reynolds. I think this would be a way to finish out her tenure, doing incredible work, not only for the state of Iowa, but setting a bar for the entire nation, because this forensic audit, you and I both know how much would be found. And not only that, this is, Norris is running for Senate. You can't let her get away with this. You are engaging in the campaign by uncovering all she knew and when she knew it. If they do not do this as Republicans, and again, we haven't had enough time to really doubt that they will, but this has to be done, right, Jacob?
It should be done. I mean, if you're not going to do it at this point, then why can you do it at all?
Right.
What are you waiting for? And last night, Jackie Norris released a statement on behalf of Des Moines Public Schools. And in that statement, it's very interesting. people in our world know how important word choice is. And she said, I can tell you that on his I-9, he stated he was a citizen and he provided 2 forms of verification. As is typical in other organizations, this is what employers ask of their employees. And as an employer, we trust employees to fill out the required forms truthfully and provide valid documentation. Okay, trust, but did they verify?
Well,
I don't think so.
No, and they will find more and more and more of this. Furthermore, I have to, since I brought up the Des Moines Register, this is an institution that went after the send me money for Venmo me money for Bush Light. They
Carson King. So to reset the story,
yes.
so for the first time, I think maybe ever, ESPN's College Game Day went to Ames, Iowa. And a guy, an Iowa State fan there, held up a sign like you see so often on Saturday mornings, said, Venmo me money for beer. Well, that went viral and he got a lot of money. And instead of just, blowing it all on beer, he donated much of it to the Children's Hospital in Iowa City. Well, the Des Moines Register, just a wonderful story. Just a college kid doing college kids things. It blew up. And instead of just taking all that money, he donated it to sick kids over at the opposing team's school in Iowa City. Great story. Heartwarming story. The Des Moines Register, I can't remember the name of the reporter, decided to do a, quote, routine background check on Carson King and expose some, I can't even remember what the posts were from like 6 or 7 years before this even happened. This is the Des Moines Register you're talking about, Todd.
Yes. So since basically the reason Jacob has this job at all is because the Des Moines Register refuses on a regular basis to do its job. Jacob, what are your thoughts on the Des Moines Register's inability or total lack of interest to do what it should have done on due diligence on this hire to begin with?
Yeah, I think it's pretty embarrassing for your hometown paper, especially a hometown paper that has resources. We're not talking about a small town weekly paper that comes out and has a staff of like 3. We're talking about the Des Moines Register. They've got some resources behind them. And to not do due diligence, at least the same due diligence that you did on Carson King, a college kid, on the superintendent, you probably need to take a long, hard look at exactly how you're serving the community. Keep in mind, guys, this is the same Des Moines Register who, as soon as they released that poll last November that said Kamala Harris was going to win Iowa, I immediately jumped on Twitter and said, hey, let's make a bet. If Kamala Harris wins Iowa, the Iowa Standard will cease to exist. If Donald Trump wins, then the Des Moines Register ceases to exist. They didn't take me up on that bet, which was really unfortunate because of, Trump's double-digit win here in Iowa. But it just goes to show the Des Moines Register is incredibly out of touch, almost as out of touch as Jackie Norris. Because you guys, I don't know if you saw it, but earlier this year, a concerned parent from the district saw Ian Roberts driving very dangerously in a location near where a child had died a few years earlier, getting hit by a car, emailed Jackie Norris to let her know. She talked to Ian Roberts about it, and she told the parent in an email that while she's not defending Ian Roberts' poor driving, she's sympathetic to him at times because he stands out with his flashy clothes and being a person of color in Iowa.
That is the singular. I mean, that's just the singularity of just woke DEI BS, spirit of the age BS. And this story might be approaching the singularity of that because we're touching on multiple different issues. Obviously, immigration is one, but the rot of the schoolings of our education system, obviously. DEI is another one of these things. Just the inability or unwillingness. It's unwillingness of media. Pick Des Moines. It could be Des Moines, Iowa, Des Moines, Washington, Washington, D.C. The inability but unwillingness is the real story of media to do their actual due diligence, to do their job. And then the other thing that this story is hitting on, this is happening in deep red Iowa. And Jacob, we've got about 3 minutes left here before the end of this segment. When it comes to the gubernatorial race, which is really popping up here, Rob Sand is our state auditor. You heard Todd say, hey, we need a forensic audit Has he mentioned anything about this? I saw he issued some sort of word salad statement the other day about this story going on. He wants to be the Democrat nominee for governor, yet he's in the position right now as state auditor, and he came out, he announced his candidacy in the aforementioned Des Moines Register. Basically, I'm a Republican, don't you know? I'm right down the middle of the fence here. Has he mentioned anything else about this other than that word salad message statement that he put out the other day?
I think he's trying to, quote unquote, wait for the facts to come out, which I think from a Democrat at this point is probably the best we can hope for. And he did make it clear in his statement that it was under the previous administration. So at least he's saying, hey, everybody, it was the husband of Dr. Jill, since we're on the trend of using doctor, probably where we shouldn't. We'll keep doing that. But he did at least acknowledge that in his statement. The problem is they also then attack ICE. And when you look at this governor's race, I've talked with a lot of people here in Iowa. Governor Reynolds won by like 18 points just 4 years ago. Donald Trump won by double digits. But they are really worried that Rob Sand has a legitimate shot to win the governor's race next November. And part of that is because our side hasn't really coalesced anybody and hasn't really lit a fire. So hopefully Republicans start taking this more seriously, because there's a good chance if they don't, there's a new governor in town next, well, I guess in 2026, and it's going to be a very different looking Iowa if that is the case.
Yeah, if you're a gubernatorial candidate, particularly on the Republican side, and you were looking for an inflection point to build your campaign off of, boy, howdy, this just dropped into your lap. Jacob Hall, how can people follow your work and the work of the Iowa Standard?
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. People can follow the Iowa Standard on Facebook. We're on Twitter, but we do a lot of stuff on Facebook. Everything's at theiowastandard.com. I appreciate it.
Jacob, great stuff, man. Appreciate you, and have a good rest of your day. Thanks for coming on The Blaze.
You too, guys. Thanks.
All right, Todd, your thoughts briefly. We've got about 30 seconds.
Well, I just reiterate again. Rob Sand is trying to get away with, being. I'm not quite radical like all those other guys. This is why the Republicans have got to go into this district and just show how everybody on the Democrat side is a radical. Nothing Rob says, or does can change that. To not do so is, again, political malfeasance. The time is now to act.
That is absolutely right on the money. And I pray that Kim Reynolds, she is, coming down the stretch here. Not a great photo op. I don't know if you saw that from, I think, late last year. But I just pray that she has one more grand slam in her before she leaves office, because that's what's necessary right now. We've been talking about this in political terms, but just to end this segment, she needs to do what's right here. She needs to do what's moral here, and that is to bring down the hammer of justice as much as he can on everybody involved in this just atrocity of epic proportions when it comes to immigration and our education system. When we come back, hour number 2 is on the way. We've got fake news or not. Todd has no idea what's coming up. Talk about that now. Hour 2 on the Steve Deace Show is underway. Steve, as we said, helping fill in on the Charlie Kirk Show today with his executive producer, Andrew Colvett. I just checked in on them during the break. It seems like they're doing just fine. I'm Aaron McIntire, along with Todd Erzen, filling in for Steve on the Steve Deace Show, minus Steve. And it's a privilege to do so. Todd, there have been literally like 3 people, just inundated with literally 3 people, said, why isn't your certificate of biblical worldview, 100% biblical worldview certificate, why isn't this hung up in the new studio? And I did hang it up. It's just not in the studio. It is here in the facility. I hung it up about a month and a half ago. It took you about 3 weeks, I think, to find it.
Just did yet. It? I never asked you how soon before I think
it was about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, Steve finally found it. And without giving away the whole ball game here, Todd, I just want you to talk about how perfect not only my biblical worldview is, but also where I decided to hang that certificate. The floor is yours.
Well, a couple of days ago, I actually walked into the office. Aaron's always here first. I'm almost always here second. Steve's last. And I walked in, and Aaron was just laughing hysterically to himself.
No, it was maniacally, not hysterical. It was maniacally.
That's what he did with the certificate. He thought this out. He conceived a plan. He hatched a plan. He executed a plan. All I'll say is I think it's the 5th Harry Potter movie. There's some of that in there. I mean, I when it happened, when I finally saw it, I was like, USOB, that's genius. It is. It's concerning levels of genius, but it's genius nonetheless.
Thank you, Todd. I've always wanted to be described as having a concerning level of genius, which I think I'm actually displaying today, if I may say so myself. I mean, Rush Limbaugh, no disrespect to his memory. He was one of the people who inspired me to go this course in my life. He would always say, doing the show, one arm tied, or half my brain tied behind my back, I should say. I feel like I'm actually doing that today. I'm kind of running point guard, also still doing all of my, audio directing, video directing, producing, live reading, doing all of these things. So I'm doing the show with half my brain tied behind my back. Well, if you're in enough pain where it feels like you actually have literally half your brain tied behind your back, might I suggest our friends at Relief Factor. Do you wake up every morning wondering how pain is going to affect your day? Deborah Ann from Massachusetts used to think this every single morning, but not anymore. Here's her Relief Factor story. Deborah Ann was dealing with severe hip pain. It didn't just take her toll on her every day. She had horrible times sleeping every night, too. She turned to Relief Factor, and after just 4 days, the pain was gone. Deborah Ann summed it up beautifully when she said, quote, "I absolutely love how I am feeling." You get to that point sometimes with pain. I know with my first round of sciatica, I just came to a point where I thought, I'm just going to have to deal with this for the rest of my life. No, that doesn't have to be you. If you're living with aches and pains, see how Relief Factor, a daily drug-free supplement, could help you feel better and live better. Join the over 1 million people who have turned to Relief Factor, just like Deborah Ann. Call now. Try their 3-week quick start for just $19.95, less than $1 a day. Visit relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF, relieffactor.com or 1-800-4RELIEF. Pain does not have to be a fait accompli. It doesn't have to be a permanent part of your life. relieffactor.com or 1-800-4RELIEF. Well, you invoked Harry Potter a little bit ago, Todd. Coming up later on for Pop Culture Tuesday, we've got some news concerning some of the actors and the Harry Potter woman herself, of J.K. Rowling, who had an absolute beatdown on someone. And we want to talk about that. But first, it's time for Fake News or Not. I have compiled close to 10 clips here. Some of these are shot and chaser. Some of these are just, I want to get Todd's reaction to them. Todd, are you ready for this? Because you have no idea. Typically, Steve kind of tells us what we're doing for Fake News or Not. I decided I didn't want to give you any indication on what we're doing, although I gave you a couple of hints in the first hour. Let's begin with this clip.
Let's go.
This is 60 Minutes in their interview over the weekend with Dana. Todd, is it possible to be too masculine?
This is all so dumb. I'm just, at the very least, I'm glad he treats it like a joke, and you can tell he in no way plans on being the uncomfortable one in that conversation, which way too many times people on the right side of the argument let, some dweeb reporter over there hijack the ethos of the conversation. No, he just thinks this is a stupid question. I'm not going to dignify it with anything level of respect for you even asking it. He even reminds him, define your damn terms here. You're not just going to let it float it out here like it's some kind of moral cudgel. So well done, Dana White.
It was a good answer from Dana White. So, and I'm also saying fake news, it's not possible to be too masculine. The absence of masculinity, I want to reset this, is toxic masculinity. You're not protecting, providing, serving, what have you. That's what's toxic. So when we're talking about actual masculinity, real masculinity, biblically defined, it's when you're checking off those boxes of what God has designed you for. And it's to sacrifice. That's the one word if you wanted to sum it up in one word. So in that definition, no, it's not possible to be too masculine.
I will say really quickly, Dana White is like, he shouldn't be having to answer this question. And quite frankly, I'm not sure if he has a better answer to offer, because listen, if pastors and men in general were doing their jobs, it's not coming to Dana White to define these terms at all.
All right. So there was the shot, Todd. Here's the chaser.
No, it's almost the exact same answer. I think he's doing the best he can with that. And again, this is a guy who employs people to beat the hell out of each other for entertainment, but he's got a softness in his heart. He's like, we should be able to just basically get along and live and let live and not go after each other. It really seems like a nice guy. He should not be ultimately on point for answering any of this. This should be sorted out. And when it comes to, we didn't set the terms of going after anybody, firing them. Quite frankly, the people on the right have been trying to do, this is my Donald Trump. Donald Trump wants to just, can't we all be groovy together kind of thing, sort of thing. But you had to turn him into Hitler and make sure that you shot at him and everybody else around him. Okay, we're not going down like that. All right. So if you had to establish that this was Thunderdome, you're going to be pretty darn mad that you made that decision. I just find it interesting that, really, Dana White's taken his worldview as far as it could go, and it's basically Carnival Barker, classic Americana. I'm fine with that. Let's all get rich together. All right. But in terms of the moral calculus, all that thing, we have to have conversations between that dweeb over there and pastors and statesmen who just simply turn into ash the questions that he asked, which are the kind of like what J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio 2.0 have been doing. And so, and which is also why Dana White is happy to donate to them now, but I don't think Dana White's not making any pretensions. He's not going to be the next Donald Trump. I don't think he wants to be. God bless him for handling these questions the best that he knows how or is capable to. But I hope that's not the end of the line. We need far better people in all of our institutions just showing what utter nonsense this entire conversation is.
So that's a good answer, Todd. I just want to say this. Dana White, you'll recall, UFC kind of saved Bud Light from itself.
Yes. But you see
and
why.
Now we're seeing Dana White. Well, we shouldn't be canceling people, ruining their lives for celebrating political violence. Yet at the same time, he wants to say how there's no such thing as being too masculine. And yet I agree with everything you just said there, which is another indication why, if you're going to have a guy who is going to blunt maybe the most popular and deep-seated boycott of a major American brand like Dana White, turn it around and say there's no such thing as being too masculine, and then turn right around again and say, hey, people should not face consequences for what they say. It's kind of like the anti-Viagra, but I can't get mad at him when we've got pastors who are supposed to be taking on these types of issues, who are supposed to be leading the fight. When guys like Dana White, as successful as he is, legitimately so, as much as he has built, legitimately so, he was one of the people during the COVID lockdowns. No, we're still going to do fights. We're still going to hang out the octagon. Good for him. When he is blunting some of the best momentum that you have culturally, and yet he is still a better example of masculinity than your pastors, you have a major problem there. So Dana White, as you said, to put it in your parlance, doing the best he can. But even Dana White there is just not going to cut it in this culture. Got to have the pastors. Got to have the men. Always picking up the slack here. The cavalry ain't coming because the cavalry is you. And it ain't coming until you pick up the reins.
It just does no good for him to say, listen, he does. Say what you want to say. I believe in free speech. It just ultimately, at the end of the day, means nothing in the wake of the fact we just found out that YouTube was engaged in fascist collusion with the Biden. The other side doesn't believe in free speech. They don't. So it's just naive. You could see the guy's just got a good heart. He wants to just get on with this thing. The other side has no plans to.
Let's move on. August 10th. That's about a month and a half ago on Face the Nation. Here is former Surgeon General Jerome Adams.
What would have happened in 2020 if we didn't have mRNA vaccines?
If we did not have mRNA vaccines, the best experts at the time, Bill Gates, Tony Fauci, were saying it would have taken at least 18 to 24 additional months to get a vaccine. The record before that, Margaret, was 6 years to get a vaccine using the technology.
So that's about a month and a half ago, former Surgeon General Jerome Adams describing Tony Fauci and Bill Gates as, I think he said, the best experts we have. Here's Jerome Adams in recent days.
As U.S. Surgeon General, I was in the room when COVID hit. And I'll say it plainly, the pandemic was a public health failure, not just because of a novel virus or a superimposed election, but because of missed opportunities and preventable missteps. First, our communication faltered. I personally tweeted that masks weren't needed based on what we'd recommended for past respiratory outbreaks. But that message and many others, for example, vaccine efficacy against transmission, shifted too often and without explanation. As you frequently hear lamented, schools were closed, but restaurants and bars stayed open. That lack of clarity and consistency fractured public trust, and when you lose trust in a crisis, it is impossible to regain.
Fake news or not, Todd, the public health experts of 2020 are psychopaths, one and all.
Yeah, which is why he's out on the rubber chicken circuit. Maybe he was such a fraud he can't even work again in a polite company. I doubt that's the case, but I'll have some wishful thinking for the moment. I mean, yeah, these guys they're always wrong, but they're wrong in the way that pays them money, and they're happy to. That's the thing. There's no level of expertise of any kind that is immune because of the human condition to just flat out selling out. And that's what all of these guys did. And they're just, whatever they're saying now, just follow the money. That's it. Just that, which is why I've told you about pharma. Stop turning doctors, especially when you're having your kids. Stop turning them into your priests. They're not there ultimately to help you. You find very rarely that their bottom line is ultimately, the longer they've been there especially, it's just about helping you and your health. You are a widget that's just plugged in to this broader matrix, and what is spit out is just what a bunch of people have agreed upon that are about keeping that assembly line efficient and going on. And spending too much time and too long on your individual health concerns is not really what this whole game is about, and it hasn't been for a very long time.
I just find it funny that people are sharing that latter clip of Jerome Adams finally coming around to the better angels of our nature. Finally understand, wow, we really screwed the pooch here when it came to COVID. That's not what he's saying, not the way that you think, anyway. Because if you really listen to him, both in the preceding clip and then in the later clip that I played, he's not saying that any of us were right.
No.
He's saying we should have locked down harder. The bars should have been closed too, along with the schools. We should have masked harder. We should have done all the things that never worked. We knew never worked, and we tried to make work, but we knew never worked. We should have done that even harder. That's why I say they are psychopaths. It's absolutely not fake news, one and all. Or at the very least, insane. Psychopath or insanity, whatever you want to choose, it's the same. So thank God, honestly, and yes, thank God, our maker, that our public health establishment under the second Trump administration is night and day compared to these fools. Thank God for that. All right, let's talk about the government shutdown. Here's House Speaker Mike Johnson at the White House yesterday.
Their counterproposal, what Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are demanding, is that they claw back the $50 billion that we put into the rural hospital support structure. They want to take that back. We're not going to do that. We passed that because we have to allow for that. Also, if they shut the government down, not only are troops unpaid, federal workers, and all the services that everybody relies upon, but the WIC program, the nutrition program, women, infant, and children, they will not get that program, will not be funded. FEMA won't be funded. We have hurricanes off the coast of the United States right now. This is serious business. You have telehealth, you have mental health services, all that's funded by the government would stop if Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats have their way. The Democrat shutdown would be damaging for the country. We can't allow for it.
I don't know, Todd. I mean, I kind of listen to that and I'm like, okay. Yeah, talk to me. Now, I think during typical government shutdowns, I think Mike Johnson is vastly overstating what is unfunded and unpaid. But as with any government shutdown, I'm like, oh, this sounds good. I'm like Ron Swanson in that episode of Parks and Rec. Slash it. Okay, so here's my proposal for fake news or not, Todd. And I'm not putting any words into House Speaker Mike Johnson's mouth. This is just me talking here. It would be beneficial for the White House, for Mike Johnson, not John Thune, forget about him. Mike Johnson, the White House. It would be absolutely beneficial for them to be doing the rope-a-dope here, the government shutdown. Because, and we've talked about this before, who really has the most power in the government beyond the president or under the president during a government shutdown? That would be Russ Vought, Office of Management and Budget. And you know what he could do during a government shutdown, especially a prolonged government shutdown? He could slash it. And all those employees are actually fired. Not this whole process that every single employee in the federal government, as President Trump has been trying to slash the size of government in various agencies, they don't get to play the court game. Or at least that's the way that it's been presented to me in the research that I've done. And so when the government reopens and that budget is still there, you get to hire your own people. That's the thinking anyway. So fake news or not, it would be absolutely beneficial for the White House in this instance, as we're facing, allegedly, a looming government shutdown. It would be beneficial for them to be doing the rope-a-dope right now and pulling for a government shutdown. Fake news or not?
Oh, that's a 50-50 proposition. I'll go not. You're not wrong, Aaron. If they are thinking that clear-headedly, which in Trump 2.0 land they often have been. So if they're ready to do that, go ahead. But we do have to recognize that just all of that stuff that he said in the initial clip is just, he doesn't, that's nonsense. I mean, that part's fake news because that's exactly what, when roles have been reversed, the Democrats have been saying about that thing. When it comes to a shutdown, it's not about what you're not going to be funding anymore. It's about the reasons of the shutdown. That's what's fundamental to this thing. And as we've been talking about, we don't have Democrats and Republicans should believe very different things, and it's becoming more and more clear. So our reasons aren't their reasons, and he just sounds. Those are talking points that Democrats use against Republicans. So that part is just fake news. And also to Steve's point about how we just do not have an appetite for fiscal responsibility these days, that part is true. So that's why the plan that you're talking about has to be so crystal clear and executed with such unapologetic ferocity that the Democrats actually, we actually want them to like say, oh my God, what have I done? And then back out of that as soon as possible. Because the American people just, we can't be guilty of being too smart by half on this thing. It makes sense in our eyes to do this, but the people are often the problem, and they just don't have the appetite for this thing. And that's sad, but it's true.
If this were a President GW and a White House consisting of, what was his vice president's name? what's his name?
Cheney.
If this was a Mitt Romney administration and a vice president of Palin, I would say get out of this as fast as you can. Obviously, try not to fund the meatball surgery for the gender confused and unlimited free health care for illegals. But I would have absolutely no confidence in the messaging. However, this is the Trump administration. Heck, if it was a Trump administration with Mike Pence as the vice president, prime minister, whatever you want to call him, I would have no confidence that they would be able to message this advantageously. But this is the second Trump administration. President Trump has been on point. He knows how to drive news cycles. And then you have multiple messengers, whether it's Stephen Miller, whether it's J.D. Vance. You could turn this advantageously. And I think there's a much better chance of them doing that. Now, I do agree with your first part there. That is a risky proposition. We have 3 more clips left for fake news or not. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Preborn. If you could go back in time, think of any atrocity in history, and you could just save one life from any of those atrocities, would you go back and do that? If you had the ability to do that, of course you would. Well, there's an atrocity going on right now. It's called baby killing. It's called abortion. Every single day in America, around 3,000 babies are killed. Someday, history, God willing, will look back at this as a genocide of our children, because it is. 1 in 4 pregnancies end in abortion. But unlike the past, you can do something about this today. Preborn network clinics are on the front lines, meeting women in their darkest hours, loving them and helping them choose life. This year alone, over 38,000 babies have been rescued. And the ultrasound, that simple moment when a mother sees her baby, that is a game changer. It literally doubles a baby's chance at life. So let me ask you again, if you could save a life, would you? Of course you can. And of course you would. And you can right now. Just $28 provides a life-saving ultrasound. Go to preborn.com/Steve. That's preborn.com/Steve, or dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, keyword baby. Together, we can end this tragedy one mother at a time. All right, these next 2 clips, we'll kind of take them together. I'll get your instant reaction after this first one. Let's talk to or hear from Miss Reed.
Is that if you go back before the 20th century, there were no income taxes, there were no regulations on business. You could earn as much money as you want, leave 100% of it to your children with no taxes. Right. That's the world they want back. And to get it back, they need society to change.
Oh, no! Not no income taxes, not no inheritance taxes, not earning as much as you want to, not deregulation of business. Oh, no. Mercy me. Fake news or not, Joy Reid actually believes what's coming out of her mouth. I think she was describing that as fascistic or something like that.
Oh, she does believe what's coming out of her mouth. And listen, those talking points, I mean, she's nuts now, and there's clips of her being nuts. Those talking points worked us over for Aaron's entire lifetime. He's told you that. I've never known a time when there were Republicans until just recently. This is why he's giving Donald Trump a chance like he is. Right, Aaron?
Yeah.
These have worked our entire... Yeah. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, we are kind of greedy bastards, aren't we? All right. It took us that long to figure out, we're not... Did Joy Reid to get as crazy as she is for you to finally realize maybe she might be kind of nuts? Ridiculous.
All right, next clip. As our colleague Jason Whitlock says, love the fruit, hate the tree.
Men who look like you, men who vote like you, and men who sound like you. White men, something is broken. Something is cracked deep inside when so many of you believe the answer to fear, to loss, to change is violence. Are you listening to me? I hope I'm saying it loud enough for the people in the back.
Todd, you understand why I said love the fruit, hate the tree, right? Fake news or not, Don Lemon believes the words coming out of his mouth.
No, he hates white men, but he doesn't believe the words because he knows the data.
And he knows who his
husband
is.
Yeah. But that's just pathological. But why? We've told you before. Why wouldn't people lie if they don't have a moral Christian framework? Why wouldn't they lie? It's just value added for him. What are the consequences? He doesn't think there are any. Until there are, you're just going to get more of that.
Dana White says nobody should be getting canceled for
exactly
what they say. One more quick one. This is from Moody's chief economist, Mark Zandi.
As an economist, what keeps you up at night about the U.S. economy over, say, the next 6 months?
Well, it's the tariffs and the immigration policy. I mean, I think at the root of the economy's troubles are the tariffs and the translation into higher prices for consumers and higher input costs for businesses and lower profit margins, and the immigration policy, a highly restrictive immigration policy, which is really weighing on various industries that depend on those workers: construction, agriculture, manufacturing, transportation, distribution, retailing, leisure hospitality, all of those. And I think the one thing that I just put on the radar screen that I know probably already there, but just to reinforce it, is the concern about Federal Reserve independence.
So there's that. Also, Unusual Whales reporting that Moody's chief economist said that we're on the precipice of a recession. Fake news or not, Todd?
That is fake news.
Yeah, this guy has been anti-Trump for the last 10 years. I'm not putting that any further than I can throw it. When we come back, Pop Culture Tuesday, a beatdown of epic proportions. We'll talk about that next. For one final segment on the Steve Deace Show, minus Steve Deace, who is indeed in Arizona, helping to fill in on the Charlie Kirk show this morning. And we're thankful and grateful for Steve's willingness to do that and for the opportunity to go and hang out with the Turning Point staff in Arizona as well. So continue, obviously, to lift up everyone at Turning Point USA in your prayers, and just a prayer that God would make the path before them obvious and illuminated, because we're still digging out from, Todd, what will be a September that I don't think any of us will forget. So that is where Steve is today. Todd and I are privileged to fill in for Steve on his own show. And if you think that we kept our keep around here, why don't you join the mission, if you would, at Blaze TV? It's because of you, people like you. Yes, you. No, I'm not talking about. No, actually, I'm talking about you. It's because of you that we're actually able to do this show. Keep producing content like this. Blaze TV exists because people like you refuse to settle for watered-down coverage, endless spin, and clickbait headlines that mislead instead of inform. This has never been about one voice or one company. It's about a movement of people who refuse to sit on the sidelines and are willing to take a stand. That's why Blaze TV matters. By subscribing, you're standing shoulder to shoulder with a community that believes America is worth fighting for. Blaze Media only exists because people like you step up, join us, and help drive the mission forward. When you subscribe, you're not just supporting a show, you're making your voice count, ensuring that truth has a platform today and for the next day, and for the next day after that, and for the next generation. Join Blaze TV today at blazetv.com/Deace and save $20 off right now. For as low as $8 a month on the annual plan, you can be part of shaping the future. That's blazetv.com/Deace. And I appreciate everyone for listening, not only today, but every day, to Blaze TV, Blaze Radio, and especially the Steve Deace Show. It's time for some Pop Culture Tuesday, Todd. I sent this to you, didn't I? So you know what we're talking about here?
Yes.
So for a number of years now, the cast of the Harry Potter franchise of films, most notably Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson, so they would be the two of the three lead roles. Daniel Radcliffe playing the title role of Harry Potter, as well as Emma Watson playing the role of Hermione Granger. They have pretty much gone out of the way anytime the opportunity comes up. Or at least anytime they're asked about it, they make no bones about the fact that they think that J.K. Rowling, the woman who created the universe where they became and just embodied the characters that she created and became massively famous and massively wealthy for, they have gone out of their way to make sure that they want everyone to know that she's on the wrong side of history when it comes to the trans stuff. Emma Watson, over and over and over again, has unfortunately done this. And when you think about it, and we'll get into this in just a little bit, that has to be heartbreaking for J.K. Rowling. Not just from the fact that these characters, these actors embody the characters that you created, that you put your heart and soul into. It's not so much that fact, but these actors were so young. They were children when you first started to get to know them. You grew up with them, or they grew up with you. They grew up with your baby, your franchise of books and movies. And yet once they've made their fame, once they've made their money, they are sure to throw you under the bus. Until now, seemingly. Emma Watson was on a podcast not that long ago where she discussed J.K. Rowling, her stance on women's rights, her stance on how dudes who feel pretty should not be inhabiting the same spaces as females. You know, things we took for granted just 30, 40 years ago, 20 years ago. That is totally verboten to the spirit of the age now. Emma Watson changed her tune just a little bit. She said something along the lines of, I don't agree with her, but I'll always treasure her in my heart. And make no mistake, that is a change of tune. That's one of those see which way the wind is blowing changes of tunes, if you catch my drift. Well, a television commenter on one of the networks in the United Kingdom was discussing Emma Watson's commentary on J.K. Rowling, her change of tune, which prompted this post from J.K. Rowling. I'm going to put it in part up on screen as I read it. And Todd, my plan is I'm just going to read this and I want to get your reaction. Here's what J.K. Rowling wrote yesterday morning. I'm seeing quite a bit of comment about this. That would be Emma Watson's comments. So I want to make a couple of points. I'm not owed eternal agreement from every or any actor who once played a character I created. The idea is as ludicrous as me checking with the boss I had when I was 21 for what opinions I should hold these days. Emma Watson and her co-stars have every right to embrace gender identity ideology. Such beliefs are legally protected, and I wouldn't want to see any of them threatened with loss of work or violence or death because of them. However, Emma and Dan in particular, that would be Daniel Radcliffe, have both made it clear over the past few years they think our former professional association gives them a particular right, nay, an obligation to critique me and my views in public. Years after they finished acting Potter, they continued to assume the role of de facto spokespeople for the world I created. When you've known people since they were 10 years old, it's hard to shake a certain protectiveness. Until quite recently, I hadn't managed to throw off the memory of children who needed to be gently coaxed through their dialogue in a big, scary film studio. For the past few years, I've repeatedly declined invitations from journalists to comment on Emma specifically, most notably on the witch trials of J.K. Rowling. Ironically, I told the producers that I didn't want her to be hounded as the result of anything I said. The television presenter in the attached clip that she was quote tweeting here, or quote posting here, highlights Emma's all witches speech, and in truth, that was a turning point for me, but it had a postscript that hurt far more than the speech itself. Emma asked someone to pass on a handwritten note from her to me, which contained a single sentence, quote, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. J.K. Rowling says she has my phone number, but she elected to pass through an intermediary a handwritten note. Rowling goes on, this was back when the death, rape, and torture threats against me were at their peak, at a time when my personal security measures had to be tightened considerably, and I was constantly worried for my family's safety. Emma had just publicly poured more petrol on the flames, yet thought a one-line expression of concern from her would reassure me of her fundamental sympathy and kindness. Like the other people who have never experienced adult life uncushioned by wealth and fame, Emma has so little experience of real life, she's ignorant of how ignorant she is. She'll never need a homeless shelter. She's never going to be placed in a mixed-sex public hospital ward. I'd be astounded if she's ever been in a high street changing room since childhood. Her public bathroom is single occupancy and comes with a security man standing guard outside the door. Has she had to strip off in newly mixed-sex changing rooms at a council-run swimming pool? Is she ever likely to need a state-run rape crisis center that refuses to guarantee an all-female service? To find herself sharing a prison cell with male rapists who identify as women to get into the women's prison? J.K. Rowling says, I wasn't a multimillionaire at 14. I lived in poverty while writing the book that made Emma famous. I therefore understand from my own life experience what the trashing of women's rights, in which Emma has so enthusiastically participated, means to women and girls without her privileges. The greatest irony here is that had Emma not decided her most recent interview to declare that she loves me and treasures me, a change of tack I suspect she's adopted because she's noticed full-throated condemnation of me is no longer quite as fashionable as it once was, I might never have been this honest. Adults can't expect to cozy up to an activist movement that regularly calls for a friend's assassination and then assert their right to the former friend's love as though the friend was in fact their mother. Emma is rightly free to disagree with me and indeed to discuss her feelings about me in public, but I have the same right, and I've finally decided to exercise it. That's equally as heartbreaking as it is a beatdown. Todd, before I say anything, I just want to get your reaction.
Well, she's just a brilliant rhetorical pugilist, and she's taken so many slings and arrows, and her character seems to just been more glowing the more she's had to endure. But she does early on pull her punch there a little bit away. She doesn't fully yet understand what time it is, just in the same way as Dana White. Like, we're not dealing with this. It's one thing you two one-on-one, but she's never going to learn a lesson. Anybody else like her is never going to learn a lesson until they do lose work because of this. And they should, because this is soul-killing, civilization-killing nonsense. And if you, like I said a long, long time ago, once you believe in this level of crazy, and I said it before COVID, there's nothing you won't fall for. People must pay for believing this nonsense because it's evil. You don't just blow off evil. It's not just a mistake. If this is a hill that they're willing to die on, you have got to pay them the respects of letting them die on it. For all of our sakes. So just don't bail on that out in respect. Other than that, I think, in terms of what, Emma having to read this in your own personal relationship, I thought it was stunning. But in terms of how we deal, we still haven't quite, we think somehow we can just kind of act like none of this ever really happened, right? That's impossible. That's absolutely impossible. And earlier I said it regarding the Bud Light thing. We lie to ourselves like we're taking bold stands. Oh, I'm not drinking Bud Light. We'll show that. Well, you just drank Coors Light. You didn't sacrifice anything. That's the thing. Emma's not sacrificing anything. Most people really aren't sacrificing anything. And until we become a people of sacrifice, no matter how many times we call ourselves Christians, we're not.
My thoughts go back to Malcolm Gladwell, the well-known author and researcher, great storyteller. And it was just, I think it was maybe just last month where he expressed great regret in how he addressed this issue. And said, I was basically cowed. I was a coward. And he admitted to that. And that's a good thing. And I think in the Christian worldview, if there's, an overt ask for forgiveness, we should forgive. But that doesn't save people from consequences. And that's the point that I made with Malcolm Gladwell. I'm willing to listen to stories that he has about non-moral matters For instance, Malcolm Gladwell was talking about this the other day, and this was a couple months ago. Self-driving cars are never going to work in mass because the computers are going to get so abused by the people who know that if you run out in front of a self-driving car, they're all going to stop. There's no way that this is going to work. The thing that keeps the current car system working is the fact that every now and again, kids or pedestrians get run over, and so they exercise more caution. Things like that, I'm willing to listen to Malcolm Gladwell for. But it comes to the fundamental building blocks of creation, matters of where we came from and where we're going. Voices like that, I'm just going to relegate to court jester status. And I think you can hear that coming from J.K. Rowling there. You can also hear the pain through her words just jumping off of the page. This is an individuals when it comes to Daniel Radcliffe that basically I watched them grow up. I was like a godmother to them, basically. That's what J.K. Rowling basically was. She created the world. She basically made magic happen for them in their own lives with the fame and fortune that she indirectly brought them. But I think what you're sensing there as well is the same impulse that I have with somebody like Malcolm Gladwell, which is there are consequences for this, Emma. And you have long exercised your right to speak your mind. And I have long listened to the voice that has called me to be protective of you because I know you personally. But now you're 35 years old. You're a big girl. And now's the time? Now's the time? When do you want to wake up and make up? The answer is no. Sorry. See, I think there are broader implications here. As I said earlier, when there's an overt ask for forgiveness, Todd, you would agree with this as well. Somebody asks if you have been wronged, and somebody sincerely asks for your forgiveness. Even on an issue like this. Even though it's going to be hard, and I've been honest about this as well, if somebody like murdered a family member, murdered one of my kids, that would be a testing of our faith. It would be. But if somebody asks for forgiveness, what are we called to do? Forgive. But that does not mean that we can escape consequences. I do believe overall we are winning. Now, what the trajectory of that win means when it comes to transgenderism, I don't know. We've had this conversation with the meme the slippery slope meme we've put up multiple times. How far back can we roll this? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think it's up for debate, though, that we are winning on this issue. But in the sense of knowing what consequences are, we cannot let mercy be confused with mercy in terms of consequences, be confused with forgiveness. And there are just some people, and this goes all the way down to your school board, your city council, where they should never be let within 10 feet of any moral decision, no matter how seemingly inconsequential it is, because of the madness that they have pushed. I think you hear that in some way, maybe in her own way, from J.K. Rowling, Todd. Quick 30-second reaction to that before we get out of here.
Well, another thing the church needs to work on, there's been so much cheap grace floated around. We think we're doing forgiveness when we're doing quite the opposite. And we think we're doing things in God's name and we're doing the opposite. That's usually sin on steroids. We've got so much to clean up.
Well, one of the ways that we start that cleanup is what we're talking about in overtime today. Yesterday, Steve said what I said about the passing of Vodi Bakum was profound. I'm not sure how profound it was. It's just what I think. But there's a pastor who put more meat on the bones of what I think this moment means for Christian men in particular. I'm going to read those comments. We'll react to them. That's coming up in the overtime today. Thank you for hanging out with Todd and I. We enjoyed it. Hopefully you did as well. We'll be back in it again tomorrow. Steve is traveling back from Arizona. Hope you have a wonderful day. Go hard. Romans 8:28.